Welcome to Imperial History, the podcast where we explore the epic stories of empires that shaped the world, from their triumphant rises to their dramatic falls. I'm your host, Eric Alexander. In our last episode, Neo lay dead in a villa outside Rome, and from the smouldering remains of rebellion, a new figure emerged, Galba. But who was Galba? It is not a name that leaps to the forefront of our collective memory when we think of Rome's most famous emperors. He was a man of already advanced in years when he seized the throne. He was not born of the Julio-Claudian bloodline either. No, Galba hailed from a family of old aristocratic lineage. His forebears had on a number of occasions held the consulship, the very pinnacle of Roman civic authority. Yet, Galba's narrative extends far beyond the dry recitations of ancestry and political maneuvering. According to Suetonius, the great chronicler of Rome, Galba interlaced his own lineage with the divine. In an act of unbridled audacity, he claimed that his father was none other than Jupiter, the king of gods, and that his mother traced her roots to Pasiphae, the fabled wife of Minos. Imagine the implications. A man weaving his mortal existence with the threads of myth, suggesting that his very blood was touched by divine favor. Though this may seem odd to people of the modern era, such claims were not uncommon among those who wished to rule. This is particularly true of a usurper who technically had just as much claim to the throne as anybody else. But while Galba reached for the divine, the ruthless, cold mechanics of Roman politics were never far behind. It was said that he was distantly connected to Livia, the formidable and enigmatic wife of Augustus, a link that resonated powerfully within the intricate web of Rome's aristocratic networks. Livia, a woman whose very presence had helped shape the empire, had reportedly intended to bequeath to him a fortune of 50 million sesterces. This sum, immense by any standard, had the potential to completely upend the power dynamics of the time, a true game-changer in the brutal arithmetic of imperial ambition. Yet, in the unforgiving world of Roman politics, where fortunes could be diminished with a mere stroke of a pen or an imperial decree, Emperor Tiberius stepped in. With a cold, calculating efficiency, he reduced Galba's anticipated windfall to a mere 500,000 sesterces. A pittance compared to what Livia had planned, a deliberate act that underscored the capricious and often arbitrary nature of power in Rome. By the time he reached 30, Galba had already begun to carve out his destiny on the tumultuous stage of Roman politics. He had earned the rank of praetor, a vital stepping stone in a system where every promotion was a battle against fate, and soon found himself entrusted with the governorship of Aquitania. For about a year, in that rugged and distant province, he honed his skills, preparing for the relentless struggles that lay ahead. Then, in the year 33, he ascended to the pinnacle of Roman political life by becoming consul, a title that few ever achieved, and one that set him apart in an empire driven by ambition and bloodshed. His meteoric rise, however, did not occur in a vacuum. It was forged in the crucible of one of Rome's most infamous eras, the chaotic reign of Caligula. In the year 39, as whispers of treachery swirled around the mad emperor, Caligula, desperate to secure his position, acted with brutal decisiveness. In a move designed to instill order amid the madness, he installed Galba as the commander of the legions in Germania Superior. In that role, Galba's reputation for uncompromising discipline grew, and his methods became the stuff of legend, a stern reminder that in the Roman military there was no room for weakness or hesitation. Now let's pause for a moment and consider the term decimation. Today we might use it loosely to describe any severe defeat, but its roots plunge into the very heart of ancient Rome. The word originates from the Latin for 10, a grim nod to a practice so brutal it still sends shivers down the spine of military historians. When a Roman army showed cowardice, perhaps by retreating in the face of overwhelming danger, the punishment was both symbolic and savage. 1 in every 10 soldiers was selected at random, and the remaining 9 were ordered to execute their comrade, beating him to death. This wasn't an arbitrary act of cruelty. It was a calculated measure meant to instill terror and reinforce the sacred code of honor. By the imperial era, few generals dared to use such a barbaric tool, regarding it as wasteful and excessively harsh. Yet Galba was said to have employed decimation on at least one occasion, a testament to his relentless commitment to discipline. Imagine the terror that must have gripped a unit of battle-hardened soldiers, knowing that any sign of faltering could lead to the ultimate and very public punishment delivered by their own brothers in arms. But Galba's severity on the battlefield was matched by his adherence to the ancient customs of Rome. Even before he reached the height of middle age, he clung to traditions that had long since faded from the public eye. Twice daily, without fail, his freedmen and slaves would appear before him. In the stark light of dawn, as the first rays of the sun cut through the chill of early morning, they gathered one by one to offer their respectful greetings. Come evening, under the weight of the setting sun and the quiet of the day's end, they returned to bid him farewell. This ritual was no mere formality. It was a living link to an older, more disciplined Rome, a Rome where every man, regardless of his station, played his part in a grand, time-honored ritual of loyalty and order. Despite the chaos that defined this era, Galba managed to navigate the treacherous waters of power with a keen sense of survival. When Caligula's successor, Claudius, ascended to the throne in the year 41, Galba remained largely loyal, a pragmatic decision in a time when shifting allegiances were as common as betrayal. Yet, the whispers of history tell us something even more provocative. Suetonius hints that, in the aftermath of Caligula's shocking assassination, there were those who advised Galba to seize the throne for himself. Was it a genuine glimpse of ambition, or merely a crafted legend meant to magnify his latent hunger for power? Either way, it casts a long shadow over our understanding of his character, a man who might have been ready to grasp destiny by the reins even then. In the years that followed, around the year 44 or 45, Galba was appointed governor of Africa, a post that was nothing short of prestigious. Imagine the vast, sun-baked provinces of North Africa, a linchpin in Rome's economic and military machine, entrusted to a man whose reputation was built on discipline and hard-edged pragmatism. He held this esteemed role until what was called his retirement, likely around the year 49. Yet, in Rome, retirement was never a true escape from the relentless pull of power. In year 59 or 60, Emperor Nero, sensing the need for a steady hand in troubled lands, recalled Galba and sent him to govern Hispania, a land of rugged frontiers and simmering unrest. This appointment underscored Galba's enduring value to the empire, even as the old order creaked under the weight of its own contradictions. Then, in the year 68, the empire reached a boiling point. In Gaul, under the leadership of Gaius Julius Vindex, a rebellion erupted, a spark that threatened to set the entire Roman world ablaze. At this critical juncture, Galba made a decision that would mark his place in history. Refusing to further endorse Nero's faltering rule, he boldly rejected the title General of Caesar. Instead, he proclaimed himself General of the Senate and People of Rome. In doing so, he wasn't just changing a title, he was signaling a profound break with the old order, a declaration that true power resided not in the whims of a single ruler, but in the collective will of the people and their governing institutions. The atmosphere was charged with uncertainty, and the situation grew even more volatile when Nymphidius Sabinus, an imperial official with his own hidden agenda, spread a false rumor among the Praetorian Guard that Nero had fled to Egypt. This lie, echoing through the corridors of power, fanned the flames of rebellion. At midnight on June 8th, in the year 68, swept up by these rumors and the unstoppable momentum of change, the Senate declared Galba emperor. In that moment, as Nero's crumbling regime collapsed into chaos, the tormented emperor chose to end his own life. As Galba marched from Hispania toward Rome, he was flanked by Marcus Salvius Otho, the governor of Lusitania. In the eyes of history, Galba assumed the mantle of emperor with a stark, uncompromising vision. Picture, for a moment, a leader who, much like the unyielding figures of modern epic tales, think Stannis Baratheon, believed that loyalty was not a currency to be rewarded with lavish gifts, but an obligation born of duty. His allies, mere functionaries fulfilling their sworn oaths, were not entitled to accolades beyond their service, while his enemies were to be crushed without mercy, their past transgressions met with a punitive force that left no room for leniency. Galba's reputation was as formidable as it was feared, a double-edged sword that cut both ways. The annals of the Spanish and Gallic provinces are replete with tales of his ruthless retribution. When cities wavered in their allegiance, he unleashed a relentless fury, crushing taxes that bled them dry and tore down walls that once stood as bulwarks of civic pride. But the iron fist of Galba did not stop at meting out brutal punishments. He was a man who believed that the state's needs justified even the most draconian measures. Properties belonging to Roman citizens were seized under the guise of serving the common good. Even the Praetorian Guard, the personal legionaries of the emperor, were denied the customary donatives. This bribe, a one-time payment traditionally bestowed upon an emperor's ascent, was meant to secure the loyalty of these elite soldiers. Yet Galba saw it as an affront to the very honor of their service. To him, their duty was not a commodity to be bought with gold, but a sacred commitment owed solely to the emperor. To pay such a bribe would reduce their valor to mere transaction, undermining the very principles of military discipline and loyalty that he held dear. Even as modern historians might find a certain grim logic in Galba's disdain for the donative, given the Praetorians' later infamy for corruption, the stories that survive of his reign are saturated with accounts of boundless greed. It is a paradox, isn't it? A man who castigated the use of bribes to secure loyalty, yet whose own hunger for wealth and power was whispered about in every darkened corner of the empire. On January 1st, in the year 69, the 4th and 22nd legions of Germania Superior erupted in defiance, a moment of raw, unbridled fury that still resonates in the annals of history. These battle-hardened soldiers, long accustomed to the brutal rigors of frontier warfare, refused to swear loyalty to Galba. With a visceral act of rebellion, they toppled his statues, symbols of authority forged in the traditions of Rome, and demanded that a new emperor be chosen. This was no mere mutiny. It was a dramatic renunciation of a regime that had lost its moral and martial legitimacy. The very next day, the contagion of dissent spread further. In Germania Inferior, soldiers, driven by similar discontent and wearied by years of harsh discipline and unfulfilled promises, proclaimed their governor, Aulus Vitellius, as emperor. This act, echoing through the legions of a restless empire, signaled that loyalty to a single ruler was no longer a given. Instead, it was a prize fiercely contested by men who had seen too many broken promises and too much betrayal. In a desperate bid to salvage his crumbling authority, Galba resorted to a calculated maneuver. He adopted the nobleman Lucius Calpurnius Piso Licinianus as his successor. This was not a mere family arrangement, but a strategic ploy designed to lend legitimacy to his rule at a time when every political move was under scrutiny. The adoption was meant to project stability, a tether to the old Roman values and traditions, even as chaos roiled around him. But the treacherous arena of Roman politics was not so easily placated. Remember Otho? He was the governor of Lusitania, who accompanied Galba to Rome at the start of the rebellion. Resentful of being bypassed in the succession, Otho conspired with a cadre of disaffected Praetorian guards, the very men who were supposed to be the embodiment of imperial loyalty. Their simmering resentment was a potent mix, fueled not only by personal ambition, but also by the harsh realities of a regime that had forgotten the sacred duty of rewarding its soldiers. For these men, the customary donative had been callously withheld, a slight that deepened the fissures within the military establishment. The capital itself, Rome, soon transformed into a powder keg of dissatisfaction. Discontent spread far beyond the Praetorian Guard. It infiltrated Galba's legion from Hispania and reached detachments from the fleets of Illyria, Britannia, and even Germania. In each corner of the empire, soldiers who had been denied their due rewards and subjected to ruthless purges saw their honor and loyalty being systematically eroded. As tensions reached a fever pitch, the stage was set for a final harrowing act of betrayal. In the swirling chaos of the Forum, the ancient heart of Roman civic life, a soldier, emboldened by the anarchy, boldly claimed to have slain Otho. In that charged moment, Galba's voice rang out across the tumult, defiant yet desperate. On what authority? His words were not merely a question, but a challenge to the very legitimacy that had crumbled around him. Lured from the false security of his inner sanctum by conspirators weaving a web of deceit, Galba was drawn out into the open air of the Forum, a place that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless titans of Rome. There, amid the clamour and the clashing of ambitions, he met his ultimate demise. In an almost surreal and macabre postscript to his tragic downfall, Galba's severed head was carried, like a grim trophy of conquest, into Otho's camp. This act was a stark, brutal symbol of the complete disintegration of authority. It sent a clear message that in the relentless, bloody struggle for power, there was no room for mercy or the old rules of loyalty. Galba's reign, which had lasted a mere 7 tumultuous months, was over. Yet his death was not the end of the chaos. With Galba gone, Otho seized power in Rome, his claim swiftly affirmed by the Senate. But the struggle was far from settled. In Gaul, Vitellius had already been proclaimed emperor by his legions, and he was marching towards Rome. In this fevered, anarchic moment, the declaration of one man as emperor was an irrevocable act. It was a stark choice: attack Otho or be killed.